Hey there, folks. Welcome into this edition of Extra Time. Sid Lowe, Craig Burley, Sebastian Salazar, and as always, your questions straight off of Twitter. We'll start with the first one. Oh, this is pretty direct. Gareth Bale is embarrassing. Bloke never fixed his attitude. Craig, obviously referencing all that we've seen from Gareth Bale in the last weeks, his antics after the celebrations for Real Madrid winning the title. What do you think of Sam's tweet here? Is Gareth Bale actually embarrassing?
Well, we're laughing as we came on there because Sid just called me the peacemaker as we came on here.
You are Gareth Bale's biggest apologist on this show.
I'm not an apologist for anybody. You should know that, son. I deal directly in facts. Look, at the end of the day, you know, what I would say about Gareth Bale is I don't think he's hiding his dissatisfaction with how he feels he's been treated by the manager of the club. I don't think he's trying to hide that now. Now, is that a smart thing to do? No, I don't think it is, but I think he's gone past and beyond the point where he cares. In terms of the picture of the winning of the league and the tossing of the manager up, I don't see the issue here, because if I had a manager who wasn't selecting me, I'd be more likely to be tossing him to the ground than tossing him in the air. So I don't really have an issue with it, because clearly he's on the outside here. And why would you go and toss a manager up in the air that clearly there is some some issue between the two of you? So that, you know, there are things he's done that are probably silly, but not getting involved in tossing the manager in the air is not one of them. Because if you look at some of the pictures, neither's Rafael Varane and one or two others. He just decided to take a step to the side, and that's probably the right thing to do. Because as I say, had it been me, I'd have been tramping on him and stamping on him, not throwing him in the air. Sorry.
What do you think, Sid? Is it unlucky that Gareth Bale wasn't the one there to catch him?
I quite like this image of Zidane being thrown up in the air and saying, "Gaz, catch him," and Gaz going, "Nah." Just watching him splat on the floor. I mean, look, in the last few weeks, obviously we've seen Gareth Bale sleeping. I was going to say on the subs bench. Of course, they're not on the subs bench; they're in the stands with a face mask over his eyes. We saw the footage of him in Granada holding up bandages and pretending to look at the cameras. Now, of course, he was doing that because he knows they're looking for him. And the face mask thing, I must admit, there's a little bit of me that thinks that this really doesn't matter that much. You know, this is a response to the fact that he's there with them all, he's joking around, and what's a kind of a 2 or 3 minute joke can look like a really big deal when I don't think it is. That said, as Craig rightly points out, it may not be the most sensible thing to do at a time when people are kind of sensitive about it, that maybe the best thing is to kind of keep out of the way. But you know, it's an indication of the fact that the relationship is very poor, that Bale is very dissatisfied. The problem is, and we've said this a million times, and in a way this is the biggest thing, a year ago, Gareth Bale was on the verge of going to China. Real Madrid changed their minds. And so now he's stuck. So now what do? How do you get him out? Who do you find that's going to pay him the wages that he needs to be paid, that's going to pay a transfer fee for him, that's going to be the kind of club that he wants to go to? And that's the real issue for Real Madrid now, is to find a solution to this beyond just him not playing. And actually, I must say, I think in a way it's to Zidane's credit, and possibly even to Gareth Bale's credit, that a situation as difficult as this hasn't really blown up. Because for both Gareth Bale and also actually James Rodriguez, these have been really, really awkward months, and they've been very, very difficult months. And actually, this could have got, publicly at least, a lot worse than it has been.
And this, by the way, why are people getting so caught up about, you know, what Bale's doing when Real Madrid have just toppled Barcelona and taken over the title in the domestic league in Spain again? And also, since the restart, they've been in much better form. They had a little wobble before the shutdown, and let's not forget they're in a much better position now to take on Manchester City, where they're 2-1 down and looked like they were going to get, you know, wiped the floor off after that first game. And now all of a sudden, the way City have played, the way they've defended, the way Real Madrid have come back, they're in much better shape to go after that Champions League again for an umpteenth time. So there is so much good things going on at Real Madrid and so many things they have to play for, that this really is, you know, at the very best, a weak sideshow.
You know, we don't talk about the good stuff in this program. That's not what we're about.
Well, Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah, let's not talk about how they could be favourites to beat City now. Let's not talk about the fact they haven't been beaten
That
in
doesn't get
umpteen
ratings.
games. Yeah, not good for ratings.
Craig, what's the best game you played where there was world-class players against you? The game you'll tell your kids and future grandkids, or in your case, current grandkids about.
Now, I'm only 20 minutes from Bristol, and I am prepared to drive in and breach. I am prepared to breach regulations.
It said
and give you a
future.
heavy slap for bringing up that I am officially the youngest grandfather on the planet.
Hey!
Let's get that out there. Right. The game, I don't really, my kids never really ask, my kids are all kind of grown up, but they never really ask me about stuff like that. They're not really that interested in,
In you?
TV personalities and football. Yeah, and generally me.
And their dad.
Apart from when they want money. Why do you keep looking to the side, Seb Salazar? Have you got somebody that's giving you the lines there?
No.
You keep looking over. Are you looking over? Is somebody feeding you? So I would say you can't. I've played against the great Arsenal side that was not the invincible side, but the late 90s, early 2000s. The treble-winning side for Man United. But I would have to say, if you just want to go pound for pound, it would have to be the Brazil team that we played against in the opening game of the '98 World Cup in France, which I can't remember them all, but did have Tafarel, Cafu, Roberto Carlos, Dunga, Ronaldo, Bebeto, Rivaldo, the original Ronaldo. I'm probably doubled that up. I don't know. And Cesar Sampaio. I don't know. I can't even remember who they all had. So, of course, that would mean absolutely nothing to my kids because they don't care.
Oh, Brazil in the World Cup, that's a pretty good team to put up as your top. All right, Liverpool were good enough to win the Premier League very early, but couldn't overcome Atletico. Were they actually good, or are the Premier League teams had a bad season? Craig, what do you think?
I think what we had was a bit of both, and I think you can have the two scenarios here. We had a Chelsea side with a transfer ban that lost the best player. We had an Arsenal side that was in turmoil. We had a Tottenham side that started the season horrendously, which was a big surprise because Pochettino had done a great job. We had a surprising consistency from Leicester up until the last few weeks. But what we had was the two main contenders who we knew probably before the season started who they were going to be because they were neck and neck all the way in a magnificent season last year. Was Manchester City domestically in the league anyway because they've won the Carabao Cup. They're one of the favourites for the Champions League. They're in the FA Cup semi-finals that start this weekend. So they could still have a treble in terms of domestic trophies. But in terms of the league, they made too many mistakes. They were captain calamity at the back and they made too many mistakes. You can't blame Liverpool for Manchester City making mistakes and others not doing their job. You can't blame Liverpool for that. They could only go out and wipe the floor with the teams that were put in front of them. And that's what they did. What they had was a couple of, in my opinion, and Sid will probably know better than me, having covered Madrid more than me, Atleti, they had a couple of average nights against Atletico Madrid by their standards, but maybe some of that was down to the great play from Atletico Madrid as well. So I think you can have both scenarios, Seb, is what I'm trying to say, without taking anything away from Liverpool.
Sid, your perspective here, the tweet seems to diminish what Atletico Madrid was able to accomplish against Liverpool.
No, I think Craig's right, and I think when you talk about both scenarios, you can actually see both scenarios just in the games against Atletico Madrid. So you look at the game at the Wanda Metropolitano, and you can say, yeah, Atletico Madrid played very well. They did reduce Liverpool to relatively few chances. Admittedly, there's that very, very good chance for Salah from a header in the second half. And you could say, right, that was Liverpool put in a difficult position by a very, very strong side defensively. Albeit, actually, the commentary in Spain, at least, and the sense from people watching it from Spain was, certainly in the second half, wow, yeah, this Liverpool team really are good. You know, they really did make life difficult for Atletico, but Atletico did a great job of holding on. This is when you get to the second part of it. You go to the second leg at Anfield, And I say this as someone who admires Atletico Madrid. I say this as someone who thinks that what Diego Simeone has done structurally and defensively and so on is extraordinary, and what he's done over the last 8 years at the club is really quite amazing. But the reality of the second leg is that Atletico Madrid were unbelievably fortunate to get through. The Liverpool did almost everything you could have asked them to do in the second leg. And so as Craig says, it's a bit of both, and you can see it in those two games. And those two games give the answer. Yeah, Liverpool were that good. But it is also true that in other leagues, there are other teams that are very good and that can challenge them and can set up in a way that makes life difficult for them. And by the way, I think Liverpool learned from the Wanda Metropolitano. I think they learned from that first game against Atletico Madrid. And I think we will probably see that in some of the tactical nuances that they seek to put in place for next season, because I think they're going to anticipate more teams approaching them in the way that Atletico Madrid did.
Sid, I'm sure you've got a running count of this on a chalkboard somewhere in your house. How many penalties did Real Madrid get since the restart, and of those, how many were doubtful?
Off the top of my head, I must admit I don't know the answer to this. I think it's 11 in total over the course of the league. I think, but I may be wrong here, that it is 6 since the restart. Really doubtful ones. Well, I think the one against Villarreal, for them to actually win the league, albeit they already 1-0 up, was laughable. And not just laughable because the referee gave it, but then for someone to actually watch that on a video screen and say, yeah, okay, that's a penalty, just doesn't make any sense to me. The others, I don't think. I mean, this is one of the big things about this, is there's been a lot of talk about the number of decisions going Real Madrid's way. But I think you have to look at the difference between a decision going your way and a wrong decision going your way. Those are not necessarily the same thing. So Real Madrid have had a lot of decisions going their way, a lot of VAR interventions go their way. But I think actually if you go through them, analyse them one by one, most of them are correct. I think the game when they were the most fortunate was against Real Sociedad. I think against Real Sociedad they did get away with it a little bit. But I think of those, I don't know if it's 6 or 7 penalties since they came back, I think only one of them is really awful.
Is that a tweet trying to diminish the fact that Real Madrid have won the league and have deservedly won the league? Because this seems to be a growing trait here, because Liverpool have lost a couple of games, or they've had a couple of poor performances since they won the league blindfolded, hands tied behind the back with one leg, right? And there's been a natural drop off in intensity and performance. That's normal, and people are now saying, well, they're not as good as the United side, they're not as good as the City side, they're not as good. You know, there seems to be a growing trait of trying to diminish the achievements of some of these brilliant teams around the world, because, you know, the amount of tweets I get about, you know, Liverpool are not all that because look at recently. People, I didn't realise until, I have to say, I didn't realise until this COVID-19 unfortunate coronavirus disaster that's, you know, embodied the whole globe. I thought it was just Twitter where people were utterly stupid, until I seen people going about and not doing the social distancing and not wearing masks and all that. And you see it on social media. The absolute idiots that come out and say, you know, Real Madrid have won the league. And I'm not suggesting this is what this tweet is, but it seems this way. Real Madrid have won the league, but how many penalties did they get and how many did they deserve? Oh, Liverpool are not a great side because Man City weren't at the best. Oh no, look, they've lost games recently. People just don't have a clue, and they're always looking to diminish achievements. It's quite scary, really. And that's coming from me, by the way, which is even, you know.
Oh, what an episode. Craig's pandemic revelations. I look forward to the next
Well, not the
installment.
pandemic. You know, you see these people. I went out last night again, and Connecticut's been very, very good. And I go in the store, and there's people walking about without a mask. 99% of people have got a mask on. It's not difficult. I mean, it really is not difficult to understand the scenarios, whether it be a live scenario or whether it be a footballing scenario.
Sid.
Also, I mean, it's worth adding, isn't it, that I think with Liverpool and the drop-off in results since, in a way, this was entirely predictable. I remember a friend of mine asking way back in kind of February or March, just before the lockdown started, you know, what was going to happen with Liverpool? Were we going to get were they going to get this 100-point record? Were they going to be able to break, you know, end the season unbeaten, all the rest of it? And actually, part of the kind of the conclusion we came to even then was the reason that Liverpool probably won't get to figures that good is because they're too good. They're too good. They're going to win the league so early that the momentum, the intensity, and the necessity that you need to keep on winning simply won't be there. In other words, their own brilliance is what's going to deny them the chance to break the record.
Sid, I'm told we've kept you past your allotted time, so let's move through the rest of these quickly. If Setien leaves Barcelona, who should replace him? Xavi or Poch are the two options given here.
Well, look, the obvious thing will be Xavi, but Xavi comes in a year's time with presidential elections. So there's a big question about what do you do for this year. And actually, a mate sent me a tweet earlier, or a text message earlier, and said to me, what they need is a Bobby Robson figure. Someone who can bridge it, as Robson did between Van Gaal and Cruyff, someone who can bridge that gap. But who is that Robson figure? Well, I suppose we sort of thought it was Setien, but that's not really working out too well.
Another one for you, Sid. What is your opinion of Ferran Torres, a Pep type of player? Looks like he's going to make the move from Valencia to City.
I think he's very, very exciting indeed. Now, this is where obviously we throw in all the kind of caveats and the nuance, and we say, look, calm down. He's very young. We don't know how he'll develop. We don't know how good he'll end up being. But what we have seen so far from Ferran Torres is that this is a fantastic footballer. And that if the conditions are right, we could see a huge amount from him in the next 10, 12, 13, 14 years. This is probably the best footballer of his generation in Spain. Although, as I say, let's throw that warning back in there again. Give him time, give him patience, let him become what he can become, because I think it's going to be a very, very good player.
Speaking of great Spanish footballers, we're asked here, any chance of David Silva going to Leeds if they get promoted? Craig, can you see David Silva at Leeds?
At Leeds?
Yeah, why not? Playing for Marcelo Bielsa?
No. I mean, well, one thing, Bielsa plays a hell of a high-tempo game, and I think David Silva's time for trying to do that is come and gone. The player, we talked about this the other day, and his great service to Manchester City and his performances, which have been phenomenal for a decade plus in England, as well as the time before that in Spain, was, I think, and Sid might correct me on this, I don't know, but I think the player is ready to return home to Spain. And I don't think there's any doubt whatsoever that that's what he's going to do. And, I don't think we'll be seeing him in England. Maybe just next season when crowds are allowed back in the stadium, he'll come back to get the adulation and the deserved applause and recognition when the stadiums are full. But apart from that, I don't think we'll be seeing him in England again.
All right, gentlemen, we will leave it there for today. You've dashed my hopes of seeing David Silva in an Inter Miami shirt. I guess we'll have to wait on that.
I thought you just said Leeds.
Well, yeah, but I was going to suggest Inter Miami.
Jesus, how do you go from Leeds to Inter Miami? You've always got an angle. And you know the one thing is, I bet you there's no way, Sid, you've read all those books behind you. No chance.
Well, he's going to be late to his social gathering, so let's please let Sid go.
Oh, he's going out, is he? Oh, he's going out with his mate. I know his mate.
You like this one, Craig, this is my favourite of the books on here. Look, there we go. ESPN Biased, it's called, and this one here is called Yes, we hate your team. So there you go.
We don't know who your team is.
And I remember, by the way, I would like to point out that Craig, I've been doing this since the start of lockdown, and too few people have noticed that ESPN is biased and that we hate their team. And I'm really pleased that you've given me the opportunity to point this out. I would also like to point out at this stage, and let's see if I can find it now. Oh, there we go. I'll tell you one book I definitely haven't read, Craig. This one by Gabriel Marcotti. I mean, why would I want to read that?
Yeah, exactly. His head's big enough.
You can just hear him talk all the time on the Gavin Jules podcast.
Right. Oh, no, hang on. There's another one. Oh, no, there's another one.
I tell you what you need, Sid.
As well. I haven't read that. You can tell I haven't read that. It's upside down.
Is that by Marcotti? But I tell you what you need. You need that Gianluca Vialli book. You need to read that. It needs to be an audio book, but an audio book with Gab's voice. That's what it needs.
Please no. Please no.
All right, we'll leave it there.
A little gab in my ear. I'm not sure I could deal with it.
And that's it for Extra Time. We'll be back on the show tomorrow, all over the FA Cup semi-final. Arsenal, Manchester City, among other things.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.